Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. I wanted to introduce my new tutorial to you, and this one is called the Crackle birds, mainly because of the very cool crackle that I've created and used on their body. So I'm going to create a basic bird today. We're going to learn the basic crackle technique, and then we're just going to learn some shaping. So this is going to be our crackle bird. I'm doing a white bird today as well. You can do a black one if you want, that's fine. You're just going to need to change the colors that you're using. So this is a really cool little tutorial and I hope you enjoy it too. Let's get started, shall we? Why don't we have a quick look at what we're going to need to complete this project? And to be honest, we really don't need much at all. Now I'm going to create a bird exactly the same as this one. So it's going to be a white bird with a black and white crackle. So the clay that I'm going to use is Kato clay today. It's what I have on hand. So I'm going to need my white clay. I'm going to need some black clay, and I'm going to use some scrap clay, and I've just got this brown clay that I thought I would use for the core of my bird today. I'm going to need a tissue blade, and look, mine may look a little bit rusty, but they do the job, so don't stress if yours are looking a little bit like mine are. I'm also going to use an acrylic sheet. I'm sure you can see that there. This was from an old photo frame that I got from the secondhand shop. And honestly, these are fantastic. If you can get your hands on one, definitely do so. They come in very handy. The other thing I need is my heat gun, and I've got that here. And I'm going to show you how to set this up when we get to that process. I've also got a towel to put down on my work surface. I've got a baking dish, and I've got a ceramic tile, but I will run through all of that when we get to that step, okay? And I've also got my pasta machine, which is right next to me here as well. So now we've run through everything that we need, let's get to and condition our clay so that we're ready to start our project. So my clay is beautifully conditioned, and I've just run everything through the thickest setting on the pasta machine to start off with. Now, the very first step we need to do is to create our scrap clay log. That is going to be the body of our bird. Well, that is actually going to be our bird because there isn't really a separate head or a tail. It's kind of all in one. So I'm going to use my scrap clay and I'm going to roll it into a log. Now I find, this is through number 1 on the pasta machine, and I find that I can roll this into a log better if it's on a thinner setting on my pasta machine. I'm using an Atlas machine and my thickest setting is a number 1. So I'm going to now run this through a number 2 and then a number 3. And this is where I'm going to start. The very first thing I'm going to do is cut a bevel edge here. And I think you find if you start with a bevel edge, if you start with a bevel edge, it's a little easier to roll up. Now, I also want to be wary that I want my work surface to stay nice and clean for my white clay. So I'm going to try and keep it as clean as possible, which for me, quite difficult. Okay, I'm going to start by, see this, I'm just going to get a little tiny weeny roll up here. Now, remember, I'm using Kato clay. It's actually quite a warm day today here, which is probably one of the main reasons why I chose Kato, because I want it to be quite firm in my hands. Can you see how I've just started to roll up here? I'm going to keep going. And do you know, I can cut off what I don't need. So again, I'm going to do a bevel edge on the end. So you can see I cut that down. My blade was at an angle and I cut down this way. And that is just going to mean that when I roll it up, I don't have so much here that I need to blend in to my base. And so it's not going to be such a jut that probably wasn't a very good way of explaining it, but it's not going to be such a step down. It's fairly easy to smooth it into one. Now it is important that we do get our log of clay looking quite neat and tidy, because our veneer that we pop over the top is going to be run through on a medium thin setting, so a number 4 on the pasta machine. So if our base is not neat before we start, that's actually going to show in our finished piece. So this is where this little one comes in very handy. We can actually get this log looking quite neat and tidy. Okay, so you can see that that seam is quite neat. It's, you know, you can see a little bit of it that is not fully blended in beautifully, but remember, this is just the scrap core for our bird. Now, I think I'm quite happy with that. I want my bird, let's have a look at our bird, we'll bring him over. I want him to be fatter in the middle to a tapered end. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to push, sorry, completely out of screen there. I'm going to push my log of clay towards the middle so that I am going to get a little fat belly on my birdie. Cute. So you can see how I'm doing that. I've just shortened that up by pushing in with my fingers. I'm applying nice pressure, and you can see my Kato is not squishing under my fingers. I must have hot hands, because when I use Primo, oh look, some things I can do good with Primo, but other things are a little bit squishy. So if you find that, you know, pop it in the fridge or whatever, if that's the only clay you've got on hand. And I can see that I'm going quite nicely. Let's measure him against the other one. I can see I'm probably going to have to cut some of this off, but that's okay. I'm quite happy with that. So he's getting quite a nice little fat belly on him. Now, if I just taper, see how I've dropped my palms, put my palms together and dropped that clay, you can see that I've kind of created a nice little taper there. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do, I definitely think this is too big for my bird, because I need to remember I'm going to coat another layer on top of this. So I think it's too big. I'm just going to cut some off the ends like that. And now I'm going to just taper it in. I might actually just leave it like this and we can fix that tapering up. See how I can roll that around and just get that nice end rounded on the end. So I just want to have a little bit of a fat belly and some slightly tapered ends. Okay, so this is what we want to have for our bird. I can see that he's a little bit wonky in the middle. So let's just straighten him up a bit. This project is actually all about the shaping. It's a fairly simple project, but if you get your shaping right, your bird can turn from mediocre to outstanding. So it's a good idea to kind of work on that shape. Just make sure you're happy with it before you start. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm not going to spend too much more time because I will be doing a lot more shaping once the veneer is put on. All right, so let's move our scrap clay out of the way, and I'm going to sit my bird's body a little bit out of the way. Next, I'm going to move on to our crackle. Now, I'm going to start with a sheet of clay, and I'm going to start with black clay. And let me just cut it down to size. Probably going to use, let's go, I guess we can always cut more off, can't we? So my black clay, I am sticking with a number 1 setting, just like this. My white clay, I'm going to cut down because my white clay is going to be run through on a number 7. Okay, so really quite thin. Now this is the number 1 setting, So I'm going to reduce my pasta machine to number 3. So let's do it. Rather than go from a number 1 to a number 7, let's do it a little bit at a time. So down to number 3, down to number 5. So we're here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut some of this off because I don't need so much. And there's a little bit of dirt on the end there, so I'm going to cut that off as well. That's come from my pasta machine. Next one is going to be number 7. So I have my black clay and I have my beautiful sheet of white clay on number 7. Now, I just want to explain to you here, the reason I'm doing these thicknesses, I've actually done quite a bit of experimenting with the thicknesses here, and I have found that these two thicknesses work the best. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to place my black clay on top of my white clay, and I'm going to cut this down to size. Don't stress about air bubbles, don't worry about any of that sort of stuff for now. So we'll just cut this down to size like such. Then I'm going to run this through the pasta machine on the number 1 setting. So I'm going to turn my machine back to number 1 and through on number 1. So they're nicely joined together. So those two pieces of clay are well stuck together, and I would struggle to get those apart. All right, we're ready for the next step. So I'm just going to leave that there, and I'm going to get my workspace set up for the next step. Let's now have a look at our setup on our work table. I've put down an old towel to protect my table. I've got a baking dish here that I'm sitting my tile on, and there's no particular reason, that's just how I do it. You probably will come up with some other way, but I just find this an easy way for me. And I like to have something under the tile so the tile's not directly on the towel. So this is just the way that I do it. As I said, there's no right or wrong here. Now we're going to be using our heat gun, so all your usual safety precautions apply. You know, make sure there's nothing flammable on your work surface. Make sure you've got, you know, your hair tied back, no loose clothing on, just the general sensible precautions. I'm going to turn my heat gun onto the low setting. Now I have 2 settings, a low and a high. So I'm going to be working on a low setting. And the idea is that I partially cure the top layer or the white clay so that when I run it through the pasta machine, I'm going to get a nice crackle, hopefully, fingers crossed. When I did run this through the pasta machine before, I ended up with a few white marks on it. So I've pretty well just scratched them off the surface, you know. Doesn't really matter too much with the crackle. We do want to keep our other clay nice and white, the one that we're creating the head and the tail of the bird. But this crackle, it's kind of okay. All right, this is going to be a loud noise. I'm going to heat this for roughly 15 to 20 seconds. I'm going to check it after 15 and see how it feels, and maybe run it through the pasta machine once. If I feel it's going to need a little bit more crackle, I will give it a bit more heat. All right, let's get started. Okay, that was 20 seconds. Now, just be careful, this may be hot, so ease it off your tile gently. Now, I can feel that it kind of feels a little bit different. I can actually feel that I heated it more in this area than this area here, and it's kind of changed. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run it through the pasta machine on the number 1 setting. Now this is on number 1 anyway, so it possibly won't make much difference. So let's just try it through number 1. No, it hasn't. Oh, I can see. Can you see that? It's got a slight crackle up here if I bend it. All right, let's go through number 2 and see what happens. So number 2, you can see even more of a crackle. So I ran both of those with my clay this way through the pasta machine. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn it this way and I'm going to run it through this way. And I'm reducing the setting to number 3. So I've got even more of a crackle. See how this side, it actually looks quite beautiful, doesn't it? This side has crackled a lot more than this side, and I'm okay with that. I don't mind if my bird has a lot more crackle on one side than the other. Plus, I will be cutting this down to size as well. I think I'm going to run it this way through the pasta machine now. Again, I'm going to drop the setting down to number 4, and this is my last one, so this is where I want it to stay. And look what's happened now. I can see some of the most beautiful crackle in here. Now what you're going to have to be careful about now is these edges are going to be quite fragile. Now we need to keep this, and we need to get some more white clay. And our white clay needs to be white. So I've got some scraps here, but I can see that bit there. That's not white. I don't want that bit. I want nice white clay. So if you can see any grubby bits in there, I want you to pull it out. We want just the white stuff. So make sure your work surface is nice and clean. Oop, there's a bit more there. So that one's going to go. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to run this piece through the pasta machine on a number 4 setting, and I need to create a nice kind of rectangular piece. So I'm just kind of folding and rolling so I'm getting it rectangular. And this piece actually looks quite good. I know I can use this. So what I need to do now, I'm actually going to create a veneer that is going to cover this log of clay. All right, so let's start by cutting a straight edge here, and I can see my tissue blade was grubby. You can see there I've got a bit of black on there, so I don't want that. Let's get that off there. So this is my first piece here. Now let me cut this in half. So I'm going to have, let's bring our bird over. We need a head section and a tail section. So this might be the tail section, and I'm going to use a smaller piece for the head section. But what we want to do now, we want to put some of this crackle in here for our bird's body. Okay, so I'm going to cut this to size. First thing I'm going to do is cut some of that rough edge off. Just leave that to the side. Look, actually, I'm just going to show you that. Look how beautiful that is. How many things could you do with that, I wonder? It's kind of what I'm always challenging myself with in the studio. All right, so let's butt this up together here. So we've got the white, we've got some crackle. See how some of those edges keep moving? Let's just get this one out of the way as well, because I don't want those jagged edges to break away. So I've got this now. So I want to have some head section here, but I want to have a nice portion for the body as well on this crackle. So let's go about here. I want to make it straight, so I'm going to go just like this. And look, if it's not perfect, it doesn't matter. Your bird can be a little bit imperfect. It's okay. I'm going to get my piece of head clay. Actually, can you see that there? I need to get that black clay off there. And let's get this piece, pop it on. So what we've done here, and we're just butting them up against each other. just like this. Now I'm just going to slide my Multix bake over, and I'm going to fold it over, and I'm going to join those seams up. I'm applying firm pressure. I'm not going this way because I'm going to smudge my join. I want that join to be one beautiful straight line. So that's what I'm going to do. Can you see that? And by applying nice firm pressure, this piece should now be one piece. Let's have a look. So this is where our bird's body is going to sit. So I'm actually going to cut some of this off here. Let's remove that from our workspace. And now let's turn it around this way. And I want to remove this. So I'm going to go this way. I'm going to pull it towards me. And now, isn't that beautiful? How many things could you do with that? So now it's going to sit down here, and we are going to put our bird on top. Okay, so now we're going to just go like this. And this is where you need to be able to see what you're doing. So let's roll it over. Roll it over here. And we want to roll it over like this so that it creates a mark on the underneath here. And then I can easily just cut that off. Ooh, look what happened there. See that? I can just put it back together. If something like that happens to you, don't stress. It can be fixed. Now you can see that my join there is quite off and my join there is quite off. So I'm going to make sure that that join is going to be the bottom of my bird. Okay, so this is going to be the top of the bird, which looks quite beautiful. That's going to be the bottom. Now let's just get that join nicely joined up there. And look, I'm just not going to stress that that little section is overlapped there. It was probably, I'm actually quite a distance away from my work surface because I've got the camera in front of me. If you were doing it, I would actually have my head right over so I could see exactly what I was doing. It was a little bit tricky with this one. All right, so what do we do now? Now what we need to do is we need to compress all the white clay to our log. Can you see how I'm doing that? I'm rolling around. So all of that white clay is actually getting pushed in, and we're creating a nice, this is going to be our bird's tail, I think. I can't remember if it was the tail or the head. Anyway, we'll work it out. So let's do the other side as well. So compress and push the white up towards the end. You can see there, just continuing around the join. I'm not worrying about because it's white on white. If I go like this and grab my trusty little, ooh, not that one because it's got black all over it. Goodness, it's a good thing we saw that. But I did get some dirt on there. And look, if I get a little bit of dirt, I'm not going to stress too much. There are a few things that you can do to fix it. All right, so this one is coming along nicely. Kind of looks weird, doesn't it? But it's okay, we're going to get there. All right, so this, you can see what we've done here. Now I'm going to cut this end off. And I'm going to do the same with the other end. That's ready to cut off as well. All right, I just need to clean up my workspace. And now, shaping begins. So we're going to neaten up those ends. and it's pretty much just a matter of shaping it. I won't give you a running commentary during the whole thing because you'll get quite sick of me. So if you just watch the way I do it, this is going to be my bird's head actually. I think the other end is bigger for the tail, so this will be my bird's head. So I need to make sure I have no joins in his little head. So roll it all over so it's nice. And look how impossible is it to keep your white. Oh my goodness. That's okay. Excuse me. Sometimes you can easily just pick them off, but then you're left to deal with the divot you just created in your clay. So I'm not going to stress, and probably what I'm going to do is sand him once he's baked. Okay, so little head here. Let's shape little head, right? That's the bottom. So I'm going to pull him up like this. And you can see that that's what I'll need to do to his body. Can you see how I'm just shaping him around just like this? So he's kind of getting that little bit of a shape already. Let's just get his head shaped. I might even be able to do something here to hide that. I'll have a think about it while I'm shaping him. Okay, little head is coming up this way. See how you can stroke with your fingers as well. Now I'm just going to tweak here so it looks like he has a little bit of a beak. And hopefully you can see it okay. Now I can see a bit of a lump here, and this is probably from where our scrap clay and our white clay kind of, you know how the white clay was covering the scrap? The scrap's a lot firmer than the white, so that's why that kind of would have gone a bit funny there. So just play around until you're happy with the shape. He looks pretty cool. Now let's do his tail. His tail is really cool. Oh, I thought I said I wasn't actually going to chat during all of this. But anyway, I have done. Sorry about that. Okay, let's get his tail organised. Now you can see I'm stretching his tail out. And I'm just going to pull him out. Because I want to have a nice long coil section that I can coil around. See, this is all white clay on the end here. I'm going to snip it off, just starting the brown clay there. Can you see that? Because the white is so much softer than the brown, it's moving at a different rate. So now I'm just going to tweak that up there because I want to make that a really nice point so that when I twist it around, it's just nice. So I'm giving his tail a nice stretch. That actually could look quite nice just like that, couldn't it? Could be an option as well. You can pretty much do whatever you want with your bird's tail. I'm just going to stretch it that a little bit more. Just make it nice on the end. Let's just go like this on the end so that I get a nice point. Okay, that's looking better. Just going to tweak that off again because I'm ending up with that horrible white bit on the end that's not wanting to do what it's supposed to be doing. So let's just tweak it around like this and I think it'll be fine. Right. Now, I want my bird to be quite rounded. So rather than just bend it straight away, you know, you kind of have to just do it gently. So it's more like tweaking it, retweaking it, and tweaking it a bit more. So that's looking quite cool. Can you see the difference in the crackle? I kind of like this one. It's not so, it's just a lot more subtle, isn't it? All right, so now I think I like his body. I like that much of a U in his body. It's a lot more than this one, but I think I like it. So I'm going to stick with it like that. Now this tail. The tail you need to work a little bit at a time. You can see I'm just a little bit at a time tweaking it, because otherwise it's going to want to spring back to where it kind of came from. So if I do a little bit at a time, it kind of works nicely. That's a pretty cool shape. I think I like him like that. Right, so that's going to be the final shape for our bird. Now, I'm actually a little bit not happy with this section here. Can you see that? So what I'm going to do, let's just do this, shall we? I'm going to add a little bit of colour, and I just happen to have in front of me some chalk pastel. And I'm going to add a tiny bit of colour to my bird. I'm just going to have to grab myself a paintbrush. So I'll get myself organised and I'll come back in a moment. So those of you that have never used chalk pastels before, these are probably some of my favourite things to use in the studio. I'll just show you. These are the ones I have. I actually have quite a few different brands, but these are some of my favorites. And just for this process, look, as I said, there's so many things that you can do with chalks, but oh my gosh, I just dirtied that even more than by doing that with my fingers. I must have had something black on my fingers. Okay, I think what we're going to do, we're just going to colour with our chalks now. And look, you don't have to do this. I'm only doing this because I ended up, oh my gosh, wow, I'm so bad, so bad with white clay. No wonder I seldom use white clay. Right, I've got a little paintbrush here. This is an addition. This is something that I wasn't actually going to do, but because I've done that little mistake there, mistakes can be very easy to fix, and they sometimes don't take very long at all. And this guy's so cool. I think he might look good with a bit of colour. Now, the trick is now what colour. Do you know, I always go for these colours. You can see in some of mine, a lot of those are used more than the others. I'm going to go this one. See this one? Let's get a little bit of colour like that. And then let's just go gently, gently around here. And I might just put some colour around here, which might just draw our eye away from the mistake. It may not, but it may. Chalks are just, can be quite beautiful on polymer clay. So many amazing things you can do with chalk. Okay, I'm just going to work carefully around here. Just going to blend it up through here. I'm so sorry. I think I was completely off the screen then, and I do apologise. Now, I probably should have done this before I tweaked his little tail in. So let's untweak his tail a little bit. See that? Don't try and pull it out all at once because you'll end up breaking it. But we can do that. Oh, he looks pretty cute. Actually, I quite like his tail even like that. So it's kind of hidden that a little bit, hasn't it? All right, let's go with this front bit here. Around here we go. And I'm going to probably do something else. I wonder if that's hidden enough. Might be, might not be. I'll have a think about it as I'm doing it. You can fast forward this if you want to. If you don't want to sit through all this, just fast forward. This kind of wasn't planned. Sorry. But at least you can see that, you know, quite often mistakes are made. And it doesn't mean that you have to throw your piece away, that there's something wrong with it, that it's more inferior. It just means that you may need to do a little fix on it. I kind of like that blue reaching up on the back of his neck. It's kind of nice, isn't it? If you want to, oh, you could do a few different colours. You know, you don't just have to do one colour. Okay, so I think he's quite beautiful. I do like that blue on there. And I think I'm not going to stress too much about that. What I could do is just get some tiny bits of black and just maybe put some black bits around there. See, that's kind of hidden that a little bit more now. And then let's do the same around here. Doesn't mean I need to do the black all the way around. I might just go like that and then leave it. That is quite beautiful. Let's just have a look at him, move all this out of the way. So he's quite beautiful, isn't he? And I think he's finished. I'm happy with him. So that tiny little bit of chalk there, look, and you can hardly see my mistake. And I think I quite like the little colour mix on him as well. And I'm going to even leave his tail just like this. So the next step is to pop it onto a ceramic tile. I would cover my ceramic tile in Multix baked paper, or even, sorry, I'm just leaning down here, even just grab a little bit of cardstock to bake him on. I mean, it doesn't really matter because he's a sculptural piece. It doesn't matter if he does get a little bit of a shiny bottom, meaning this section here that's sitting on the tile, but perhaps just go like that. Give him a bake and then you'll see him when he's finished. So here's my finished Crackle bird. He's out of the oven, he's baked, he's nice and cool, and I've sanded off some of the parts that looked a little bit on the grubby side. Remember me, I'm hopeless at my white clay, hopeless at trying to keep it white. So just that little bit of sandpaper works beautifully on here. Just a normal, as I mentioned, wet and dry sandpaper. And I've just used a really fine grade. So I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial. He's kind of a little bit different to the first one. I do actually like the addition of the color, and you'll notice I haven't included as much of the crackle, and my crackle is finer. So depending on how you do this, you can end up with so many gorgeous little crackle birds. And look, you know, this is such a great technique. It can be turned into you know, some crackle beads. You could make little crackle birds with holes in them to string them as pendants. There's so many different things that you could do with this. So I really hope you enjoy exploring, and I really thank you for joining me today on making our little crackle birds. Thanks everyone, and bye for now.